Fran's okay, and you're okay?
Just for physio, but it's great opportunity to roll for.
No, osmosis is the balance of water
Of course,
and
that's
salt.
back to 30.
You're thinking
How was he the last time you
Not
knew?
osmosis.
What's that?
How was he the last
Thinking
time you knew?
of,
He was
asexual reproductive age.
There you go.
He's been bedridden in the feeding tube for a little more than 4 years.
Is that right?
That would be since November of
Yeah.
2020, but
It's like a
we
cell.
haven't detected anything since then.
You know what I mean? It's
So,
Yeah,
we
I
call
keep
him-
thinking
cellular.
He's got a
cellular.
hospital bed
No.
in our dining room, and we put him in a wheelchair.
Couple
and he's
pages
got a
remember
wheelchair van.
grade 10
So
biology.
he still
I
goes
have
to a
not
lot of
taken
games.
math or science
You know,
in 5
once we
years.
get him in the van,
Even
he can
worse,
do whatever
not
we
even
want.
close.
And, you look in his eyes and he's still there.
I know. It's rough.
But in terms of
Yeah, but my
being able to do
critical
anything
thinking
for
skills are
himself,
really good.
like absolutely anything. You've had a baby.
Mitosis.
Mitosis.
So you
This is a
close.
27-year-old, 200
But
pound.
osmosis is
Cellular mitosis.
27?
It's always
Yeah,
like
cellular.
Should be
it's when
28,
people
can
like,
you
oh
believe
yeah,
that?
I feel like my cellular walls are, sick, and I'm like, nope, that's what
Pushing
mine
30 and I
sounds.
stayed the same age.
You don't have cellular walls.
Talk about impossible.
You have cell membranes.
Oh, yeah. Where's your, perfect for her? There's nothing, I didn't. Well, yeah, white is it on this? So that's supposed to be like one of your, like things about you. You got it?
I'm ready now.
It's just really good.
Not much. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Better than I was last week.
That's good.
I didn't get this. I know
It's super nice ultra. You're too cool to get it.
Yeah, you.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm confident.
That's like a slut at you.
It is.
No.
No?
No.
What are we That's what I'm hearing.
I need an offensive line.
Who?
Miles Garrett.
What team?
Bears.
What, Bears?
They're talking about
Wow. That'd be big.
Gotta give up 2 first round picks though.
we're not going to use those checks to get an O-line anyway, so why not?
I know I saw the come over here. If the Bears do really well this year, you're not getting them. I don't know who's this attractive bunch of comparisons. And it's just like trading your there's not
Do you guys like put your articles on LinkedIn too?
Oh, no, not us.
Some people do, because I have them on my Instagram account, but I'm trying to figure out if I should put them on LinkedIn too. Yeah, you can. People, I have 4 I feel like I'm just gonna be standing it.
I think there's a few amount of people that like at least put like some content on there.
I just like to my profile. That's what I have. I have all my things. Yeah, I have all my things. Like a link.
Yeah, but no one's clicking that.
We don't have much in the way of running backs.
Yeah. Like if you want to add, like actually build out the.
Well, I put the first. It also just published that.
It just depends.
It already out.
No, I'm just curious because like this year it seemed more like Tuesday and Thursday as it down here.
I put on open to work. I have the open to work thing.
Yeah, but
So let's say
I
2 or
started-
3
I
today.
put that they can set some.
So
Leave this morning and one in the calendar, I think.
It really sucks.
I've
seen the list like, you can get so, you can get paid it.
they're really getting through.
Yeah, there's an education one, and that's right after an education.
Hey, can I sit next to you? Hey, do I know you? Hey, how are you?
Thanks, Ben.
What?
I don't know, Ben Zielinski reposted.
Roughly quick.
I have no. Twitter? Sorry, yeah. I know.
Okay.
I'm
My
sorry.
brother decided to bring home a puppy.
Fix it on radio.
His name is Ziggy, and he's the king of the yard. A little Chihuahua Terrier mix.
Woo!
Jeez. Good morning, everybody. Must be no news going on. Everybody's in here. How are ya?
Lively crowd.
Whose is this? Are these yours?
Probably you guessed these.
Oh, all right. Well, thank you, everybody, for being here today. Appreciate it. Are we ready? Is he ready?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, all right. We are all here. Oh, first, let me introduce myself. I'm Toni McCombie, state representative from the 89th, the House Republican leader from Northwest Illinois. We're all here today because Illinois families deserve transparency and accountability in the face of a migrant crisis that the governor and Mayor Johnson recklessly invited into our state. They pander to their political base, pushing out of touch immigration reforms. When these policies inevitably fail, they spread false information, withhold key details, blame everyone but themselves, and refuse to answer basic questions about the impact of their decisions. That should end today. Let's start with the governor, who irresponsibly claimed that ICE was targeting schools in Chicago, a statement that was completely false. When the truth came out, did he retract his words? Did he apologize? Correct the record? No. Instead, he doubled down on fear and misinformation, putting his political agenda ahead of the facts and the safety of our communities. Why? Because fear and misinformation serves a political agenda, but let me be clear, this does not serve the people of Illinois. This is too important of an issue to play political games. It's about real consequences, consequences that cost billions of taxpayer dollars, and ultimately consequences that cost lives. We have learned about yet another murder in Chicago, committed by an individual who took advantage of the sanctuary policies. Policies that are unjustly being championed by this administration and Mayor Johnson. This isn't just a policy failure. It's a failure that costs innocent lives. How many more cases like this are out there? What other crimes have been committed under the cover of secrecy? The public deserves answers, not silence. And last week we learned that Mayor Johnson is not fully cooperating with the request for information from Congress on Chicago's costly and dangerous sanctuary city policies. What is Mayor Johnson hiding? Why won't he come clean about the true cost to taxpayers and the growing risk to public safety? If these sanctuary policies are as beneficial as he claims, then prove it. Show the numbers. Show the facts. We have long called for legislation to end the sanctuary status of Illinois and allow for cooperation between local law enforcement and the federal immigration authorities. Cooperation is not a dirty word. These calls have been met with continuous opposition from the majority party, calling us every name in the book. But instead of political grandstanding, let's get to the bottom of what is actually going on. Today, we are calling on the Immigration Committee to hold hearings immediately to get all of the facts. We need law enforcement, city officials, and impacted communities to testify in public and answer the tough questions. How much is this policy truly costing Illinois taxpayers? How many illegal immigrants, non-citizens, have faced criminal charges and been released? How many crimes are connected to these illegal immigrants, non-citizens? How many incarcerated individuals in Illinois have an ICE detainer? What is the governor and Mayor Johnson's plan to address the crisis? Sorry, boys, you invited this into Illinois. If the governor and Mayor Johnson can't or won't solve this crisis, the Illinois House Republicans have solutions and will lead on this topic. Now I'd like to introduce Leader John Cabello.
Thank you, Leader McCombie. John Cabello, state rep out of the 90th district up by Rockford. Under the Biden administration open border policy, the United States and the state of Illinois were unable to keep up with the flood of migrants into our state and country. According to the Center for Immigration Studies, Illinois is now the home to the 5th most highest illegal nationals in the country, with at least 530,000 illegal immigrants. 530,000. The surge in migrants and illegal immigrants in Illinois has led to a string of horrific crimes, endangering public safety, and has blown a huge hole in our already strained budget. Recent headlines have underscored how the surge of illegal immigrants has made our communities less safe. In Champaign-Urbana, 2 college students were killed in a hit-and-run traffic accident, which was by a Guatemalan illegal immigrant who had previously been deported. In Rockford, a 75-year-old female was horribly sexually assaulted by a 30-year-old who came from Venezuela through California and was bused to Rockford. In a truly horrific crime, 2 illegal immigrants allegedly tied up, tortured, and killed a 63-year-old Chicago man. And the first arrest in Chicago by ICE agents under the Trump administration was a convicted sex offender and child predator from Thailand. From a fiscal standpoint, illegal immigration has cost Illinois taxpayers billions of dollars and taken critical needs away from our working class families. The state of Illinois provides better health care benefits for undocumented immigrants than most Illinois families. In fact, Governor Pritzker watched as the state spent more than $2 billion in taxpayer funds on health care benefits for undocumented immigrants. Additionally, the state has spent at least $820 million to address Chicago migrant crisis. In total, nearly $3 billion has been dedicated to services for migrants and undocumented immigrants, while services for our most vulnerable citizens chronically are going underfunded. The sad reality is that Illinois sanctuary state policy has cost Illinois taxpayers billions and made our communities less safe. We are calling on the House Democrats to repeal the Trust Act so Illinois law enforcement can adequately communicate with ICE to detain and deport violent criminals. This should be common sense. When you tell your law enforcement that you cannot work with a federal government agency, it's idiotic. It is stupid. It puts our citizens at risk. I will continue to fight for legislation and state budget that prioritizes the needs of Illinois working families and seniors over migrants and illegal immigrants. And it's my honor to introduce Leader Ellick.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Amy Ellick, and I'm the state representative for the 111th District, which is in Madison County. Under Democrats' leadership, they've allowed for Illinois to become the go-to destination for illegal immigrants to the tune of over 500,000 people. And why wouldn't it be? Illinois gives undocumented immigrants free health care benefits, housing assistance, driver's licenses, and other benefits at the burden of the Illinois taxpayer. This is not what Illinois residents want. As we have talked to Illinoisans from all around the state, no one believes that we should be catering to illegal immigrants while our veterans, seniors, and most vulnerable services are underfunded. Aside from the public safety concerns that my colleagues have highlighted, which grow every day, this crisis is having a tremendous effect on Illinois taxpayers. The governor's own budget team has projected a budget deficit of over $3 billion. If he's looking for places to cut, he should start with the billions of dollars that go toward lavish benefits for illegal immigrants. Illinois cannot continue to shoulder the financial burden of free government handouts to illegal immigrants while costs for our own citizens skyrocket. We are flat broke. We cannot afford to accept hundreds of thousands of individuals and give them the resources they would need to succeed. Illinoisans are begging for tax relief. The Democrats' solution? Raise taxes to cover the costs for illegal immigrants, and when that doesn't cut it, just spend what we don't have. It cannot go on this way. Illinois simply cannot afford to spend over $1 billion per year on housing, food, and health care for illegal immigrants. That's $1 billion that could be used to combat homelessness and help our most vulnerable citizens and properly fund state programs that have been neglected. This has to stop. As long as Illinois continues to put illegal immigrants above Illinois families, we will continue to see families and businesses leaving this state in droves. It's bad public policy that has gotten us to this place. This should not be a partisan issue. Illinois citizens should come first.
We'll take questions now.
Broadly on the budget, talking about $1 billion here, $2 billion still to go to fill that hole. Where else would you take from?
Oh, goodness. When we think about government efficiency and effectiveness and the services that we're providing to Illinoisans, we know that there is much fraud and much abuse. We've both served on the Legislative Audit Commission, and we see the inefficiencies of government every time we sit in those committee hearings. So that's a great place to start, and we look forward to having a cooperative relationship with our Democrat colleagues to find those places.
And I'll just go ahead and at this time introduce again. So Amy will again serve as a budgeteer with Leader Hammond, and also at this time Leader Cabello has introduced legislation for Illinois' own DOGE, so we will be working on that through our caucus as well, looking for other efficiencies. You know, oftentimes you'll hear, well, why don't you as the House Republicans come up with your own budget? And, well, that would be great for us to go through that exercise. However, we don't have the ability to get the numbers from the agencies and the cuts from the agencies for our staff to be able to perform that. We can always guess and go through an exercise of ourselves, but even sometimes to put our priorities out, those are usually the first things that are cut. So we want to make sure to always, when we put our priorities forward, they're typically our shared priorities with our Democrat colleagues first.
And can I give you just a real world example here? I'm the spokesperson for public safety appropriations. We met with one of the directors of the department and asked specific questions about any prison closures, any new buildings that are going to be built. And the acting director at the time said, we have no plans for anything. 3 days later, Governor Pritzker says we're closing 2 prisons. So when we try to get that information, whether the director knows or not, we don't get that real-time information, and it was only 3 days.
I'm not challenging whether this is a state problem. John, you mentioned a little bit about some areas of the state that are not Chicago, but I see Rockford, Quad Cities area, Metro East. What more can any of you say about how this problem is manifesting downstate, statewide?
How much time you got, Dave?
Oh, for you?
I mean,
You, I
it's,
got 5.
I mean, I can tell you, I'm still active law enforcement. I mean, I worked yesterday morning. When I can tell you that a 75-year-old woman walking on the bike path downtown Rockford is sexually assaulted by somebody that shouldn't have been here in the first place, makes my blood boil. It should make everybody's blood boil. When we find out that man came from Venezuela to California, and then California buses him to Rockford, we should be trying to figure out what the hell is going on. Our citizens are at risk by the folks that are coming here. Not all of them, but we've got some pretty bad people here. And for this state, for this governor, to sit there and say, we're not gonna help getting rid of the worst, he should resign, because he's a disgrace.
He said the worst of the worst ought to go. He said the violent criminals ought to be the ones.
Was that before or after he said they're gonna have to go through me? He's gonna make up his mind what he's gonna do. He's putting his finger in the wind to find out which way should I go today. Which way is gonna help me get to the presidency? That's what he's doing. He needs to put the citizens of the state first, then worry about becoming president.
Hey,
I think real quick, just to, when you're talking about downstate, another thing outside of just safety that really is affecting, that people aren't really talking about, is the influx of students into our schools. This is a real issue, especially when they can't speak the English language. We have a hard time now with just Spanish meeting the mandates that we have. So whether or not, and then they get all of the wraparound services that go with being a student. There's no questions asked of where they come from. These are just now students in the district, and whether it's the housing or SNAP or whatever programs they're on, it's really becoming a drain on our system. So that's a real concern, and that's a real thing. I think in Freeport alone, which John represents, I think it's over 200 students last year. I don't know what the number is now, but you're seeing several, even in West Carroll School District, you've seen an influx of, I think, 30 to 50 students. So that's a very small rural area, and I'm sure it's even in Alton area. So.
What age are the kids you're talking about? What grade level?
Well, I think in Freeport it's the high school, isn't it?
It's all ages.
Yeah,
all
yeah.
How do you talk about this without sounding like you're being mean to kids?
Oh, it's not about being mean to kids at all. It's about the fact of the matter that there's new students coming into the district, and how do you serve those kids?
I thought you wanted to kick them out.
What? No,
I thought
you were asking about how it's affecting downstate, and this is a real
I did.
concern.
I mean, you're saying that there are kids of illegals who are in the schools.
No, what we're saying,
No, you're
no,
not.
that could be true,
Okay.
right? But there's an influx of students coming in from other places.
Yeah.
We don't know where, right? Fact of the matter is they're here, and we can't serve them. We can't teach them. We're giving them wraparound services, right? And this wouldn't be happening if we were not a sanctuary state. So if we remedied the sanctuary state, then that wouldn't be an issue. Jeremy.
Sorry, Leader, I thought
That's
you were
okay.
done there.
No, that's all right.
Actually, Rep. Cabela, maybe you could speak to this. Because the Trust, being in law enforcement, because the Trust Act prohibits local law enforcement from working with the feds on immigration matters, like when you, is there still a mechanism in place for law enforcement at your level to find out, like, you're talking about that example about the bike path, the jogging path of someone being undocumented committing a crime. How does law enforcement then typically find out about immigration status if they're prohibited from cooperating in any way with the feds? Is it just by chance that you learn of their status, or is there a mechanism in place where law enforcement learns of it anyway, or is it from just
We still
unnamed
have a
source?
statutory obligation to figure out what happened,
Mhm.
whether the Trust Act is there or not. In my opinion, the Trust Act should only deal with civil stuff. The minute you create, you commit a criminal act, in my opinion, the Trust Act is thrown out the window.
Right.
Our job is to protect the citizens of this state, the tax-paying citizens, the legal citizens of this state. And we have to do the absolute best for that victim and that victim's family. We have to do the full investigation, and the men and women of law enforcement do an excellent job on those investigations, and they'll find out everything that they need to know. Guess what? We don't always have to go through ICE. There's other federal law enforcement agencies that are willing to help us, and we're willing to work with them, just so that the people that want the Trust Act there you go, it's fine. But there's other people that we can work with, and we are.
Leader McCombie, there's a committee hearing in the Senate today about the Knight Silas bill. Do you support it, and how optimistic are you about the bill finally passing this time around?
I wasn't aware of that, but I'm ecstatic that it is finally. Unfortunately, we've had 2 deaths now. I'm ecstatic to hear that. We have passed it in the House, and it was killed in the Senate. I'm very confident if it is passed in the Senate, it will pass in the House, because we've already done it. So I look forward to that. Thank you for making my day.
Leader McCombie, you talked about Republicans, looking to take the lead on this issue if Democrats don't address the problem. I guess, from your perspective, to what extent, how much can the state do versus the role of the federal government? I guess, what does the relationship, in your opinion, kind of look like when it comes to the role that the state can play in terms of handling this issue versus the role that the federal government plays in all this?
Well, first, we need to repeal the Trust Act, and we have to cooperate with the federal government. Those are 2 things that are very easy to do. And then we need to also repeal the health care that we're giving to illegals. There's 3 things that we can do on the state that can drastically improve Illinois. Illinois would be the greatest state in the nation, save bad policy, 100%. And we have those solutions, and many of our Democrat colleagues agree with that and want to work with us. But like I said, collaboration is not a bad word. And we hope that we have some of those solutions brought forward. There are some common sense solutions that want to be taken up and will be taken up by our Democrat colleagues, and we have a hopeful outlook this year because things have gone too far. We just saw that with this election cycle, and we're going to have another bad election cycle for our colleagues on the other side of the aisle if they don't come to the middle.
Every time that we get to budget season, Republicans are upset that you're not brought to the table for budget negotiations. By starting out saying we should cut the migrant funding, do you think there's even a chance this year that you'll be brought to the table? I know that Senate Republicans have had a better opportunity over recent years, but where do we stand this year? Will House Republicans have an opportunity to sit at the table?
Well, I think the Senate will keep the budget, and I hope they keep the budget because then we get a few days to actually read the budget before we vote on it. And I will reach out to the Senate Republicans and the president over there and ask to be able to give our shared priorities for sure. Like I said in inauguration, I'm not asking to sit at the table, but they're more than welcome to sit at mine. We're not begging to set up for failure, but we certainly want to work and will provide our solutions to do that.
Representative Cabela, you were talking, it was mentioned that you were trying to bring DOGE into Illinois. Outside of migrants, are there any other programs you'd like to cut?
Again, how much time do you have? I mean, look, the taxpayer of this state really, if you're wanting to invest money, invest in chiropractics. Because the amount of burden that we placed on their back is going to break it. So what I think we need to do is follow the federal government's lead, look at what is working, and follow that. I think we have way too many programs in the state that are just duplication. They're jobs factories. They're not actually helping people. Let's find out exactly how much money is going to help people and how much money is going to overhead. Because there's probably way too much money going to the overhead instead of to the actual people that need the help.
Leader McCombie, you were talking about the budget earlier. Speaking of that, so last week was talking to, I talked to you about the budget. I talked to some Democrats, including Representative Buckner, who's now a co-budgeteer. They have new budgeteers on the Democratic side. Among what he said was, quote, the budget process, it will not be opaque. It will be very transparent. We'll talk with the Democratic caucus and the Republican caucus about what's happening and how we should move forward with this budget. Have you seen any, is it too early yet? Have you seen any kind of outreach from Democrats? And if so, what's your reaction to this?
I trust Cam, so if he said that, then I believe that. It probably is too early, for sure. But I have also heard from the governor. He did ask for our priorities as well. So that's the start. So we're going forward with hope, and that's where we start. This is be our third year, me as the leader. The first year I was very hopeful. The second year I was not, and let's a clean slate. Let's start fresh. So, but I do trust Representative Buckner, and if he said that, then I'm going to go forward with that faith.
All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Actually, I just,
Do we just leave them there? Someone's going to figure them out? It could be.
if only we had Governor Bailey, right? If only Bailey were governor instead of Pritzker.
Wouldn't have a state if he was there.
Any interviews in between?
Right now, probably not, but I have to figure some.
Well, I mean, there was place other than TV.
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna,
Take out the